Critical Role reveals their new Age of Umbra characters, 2 new classes get added to Daggerheart, and some bad news for fans of Henry Cavill's Voltron movie.
You know I can't take bad news.
Welcome back to Fantasy News Friday on the Character Sheet, your home for fantasy and TTRPG news. Before we talk Critical Role, Daggerheart, Game of Thrones, and more, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us keep these videos coming? And then, let's dive into the news. Critical Role has prepped their fans for next week's Age of Umbra premiere by bringing us the Character Creation Session 0 for the 8-week Soulsborne-inspired Daggerheart campaign last. Matt Mercer crafted the world of Age of Umbra to be dark and dangerous and promised that it would be far more deadly than any setting Critical Role had explored before, with its big inspirations from games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and even board games like Kingdom Death Monster. And the characters the cast have created to somehow survive this setting, where the gods have abandoned mortals and evil roams the darkness in ever-growing strength and numbers, reflects that. Liam and Laura, who will not be part of the original 5 cast members who all share ties to some of the few remaining communities of survivors, were not part of this Session 0, so their characters will be a huge surprise when they do join in the campaign. As for what the rest of the cast will be playing, Travis is taking on the role of a seraph, trying to find any remnants of the divine left behind by the gods to help save the mortals from encroaching darkness. Sam is playing a fawn ranger who uses their speed and knowledge of the land to act as a courier and message deliverer between the few remaining settlements. Taliesin is playing a fairy wizard who comes from a somewhat hidden cult settlement, which is pretty on brand for Taliesin. Marisha is playing an orc guardian whose family raised them with tales of their previous history as knights before the gods left the world, and Ashley is a clank bard who was long ago chased from her highborn community along with the family that owned her. All in all, it sounds like a very interesting, very diverse cast, and we cannot wait to see how they all come together when Age of Umbra officially kicks off next Thursday.
This is just the kind of mood and setting that I love.
A new announcement from George R.R. Martin has fans convinced that we will simply never see Winds of Winter, the final book in the Game of Thrones A Song of Ice and Fire series. The book, which Martin has allegedly been working on for 15 years at this point, seems to be even less of a priority for the writer now, as he is not only working on new spin-offs with HBO, but now he has just signed on to produce an animated American Gothic version of the story of Hercules as well. Martin has basically worked on any project but his final Game of Thrones novel in the last decade, doing the world building and background lore for Elden Ring, and working as a producer of various upcoming shows like his Wildcard series on Peacock, or even as the executive producer of the AMC series Dark Winds. So with yet another major project now on his plate, the general consensus among Game of Thrones fans is that we are unlikely to ever see the Winds of Winter, so ironically, winter may never be coming. Free League Publishing is bringing its popular Dragonbane TTRPG back to Kickstarter with 2 new books on June 3rd. The 2 new expansions for Dragonbane are Arcand, City of Waves and Flames, which is a new campaign setting for the system centered around the city and the intense power struggle going on within its underworld elements, and features over a dozen new adventure sites to explore, with potentially more coming as stretch goals during the Kickstarter campaign. The second book, The Book of Magic, offers 5 new schools of magic for your Dragonbane characters to explore and learn, like necromancy, demonology, and harmonism, and of course a slew of new spells to fill out those 5 new schools, and stretch goals that could add even more spells to the existing schools of magic, like animism and elementalism. So if you're looking to increase your magic arsenal, or just get an entirely new massive city to explore and frame your campaign around, check out the new Dragonbane Kickstarter when it launches on June 3rd.
It's about damn time.
Some bad news for Henry Cavill and Voltron fans, as the actor's upcoming Voltron movie, which was being described as a sci-fi blockbuster, is now apparently headed for a streaming-only release on Prime Video. The move, which was reported by Game Rant, would fit with Amazon's recent moves on other big films, like their Roadhouse remake with Jake Gyllenhaal, which became the most viewed Prime Video movie ever, but was also sent straight to streaming. But it's still disappointing for fans who are hoping to see Henry Cavill and Voltron up on the big screen. But with Cavill already having his Warhammer Cinematic Universe tied up with Prime Video, Amazon may simply be looking to make Prime Video even more of a viewing destination at the expense of their own theatrical releases. But hey, at least we know that the Voltron movie is still being made, and even die-hard theater fans probably won't complain too much at the chance to basically see it for free with their existing Amazon Prime subscription when it comes out sometime in the next year or so.
Check this out.
And finally, Critical Role is already pushing new Daggerheart content as they have launched their new website, The Void, a playtesting hub, to announce the playtest of 2 new Daggerheart classes, the Warlock and the Fighter. The Warlock is pretty similar to the Warlock you have come to know in D&D 5e, although the Daggerheart version uses an additional mechanic called Favor to power some of their domain abilities, and the specific boon abilities granted by their patron packs. The Warlock comes with a ton of new domain cards, as well as the brand new Dread domain that currently only they have access to, which shows that Critical Role is not afraid to make big additions to the domain circle right out of the gate. The Fighter, on the other hand, is much more of a monk than a traditional D&D 5e fighter, who can learn new martial stances at every tier to improve their attacks and give them a lot more flexibility, and they get bonuses for unarmed combat as well as additional unarmed attacks. The Fighter comes in 2 flavors, the martial artist who gets to switch between those previously mentioned stances, and the Juggernaut who just gets big buffs to survivability and unarmed damage output but doesn't have access to the stances that the martial artist does. The Fighter uses the Bone and Valor domain, so no new domains for the second class, but we cannot wait to try out both of these new classes and leave some feedback, as it appears that Daggerheart is already pushing for big future content just days after it officially released. And that's all we have this week on Fantasy News Friday. Let us know what your favorite story was down in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.